In the quiet village of St. Mary Mead, a cryptic notebook lands on Miss Marple's doorstep, pulling her into a deadly chess game. Teamed with bold undercover agent Lily Finch, she unravels a sinister syndicate led by the shadowy Xavier. As Chaussure murders strike, Tommy's stabbing, a pub fire, an attack on the vicar, and Clara Wentworth's vanishing. Each move brings them closer to a thrilling showdown. With sharp wits and daring, can Miss Marple and Lily catch Xavier before checkmate claims the village? Chapter 1. The Ominous Parcel. The sun hung low over St. Mary Mead, painting the village in soft gold. Miss Jane Marple sat in her cosy parlour, a cup of tea steaming on the table beside her. Her knitting needles lay still, forgotten for the moment, as her sharp eyes studied a strange parcel that had arrived with the morning post. It was small, wrapped in plain brown paper, with no name or address to say who sent it. Her name, Miss J. Marple, was scrawled across the front in bold, slanted handwriting, like someone had written it in a hurry. Miss Marple, with her snow-white hair tucked neatly under a lace cap, wasn't one to fuss over surprises. But this parcel felt different. It wasn't the usual bundle of letters from friends or the seed catalogues she liked to browse. It had a weight to it, not heavy, but solid, like it carried a secret. She snipped the string with her little silver scissors and peeled back the paper. Inside was a leather-bound notebook, its edges worn and its cover scratched, as if it had been carried in someone's pocket for years. A faint smell of ink and old paper rose from it, tickling her nose. She opened the notebook carefully, her fingers gentle like she was handling a bird's egg. The pages were filled with tight, messy writing, rows of dates, initials, and numbers that looked like sums of money. Some entries were scratched out, others circled in red ink. It looked like a ledger, the kind a shopkeeper might keep, but there was something sneaky about it. The numbers were too big for everyday things like bread or coal, and the initials didn't match anyone she knew right off. One set, CW, caught her eye. Clara Wentworth, the rich widow who lived in the big manor house, was the only CW in St. Mary Mead. But the others, RL, TP, and a mysterious X, were strangers to her. Tucked between the first 2 pages was a slip of paper folded once. Miss Marple unfolded it and read the single sentence written there. The game begins at dusk, and only the sharpest will survive. The words sent a shiver down her spine, not because they scared her. She wasn't the type to jump at shadows, but because they were so bold, so sure, like a challenge thrown at her feet. She leaned back in her chair, her tea forgotten, and let her mind turn the words over like a puzzle piece. A game, she said softly to herself, her voice as calm as the ticking clock on the mantel. But what kind? And who's playing? St. Mary Mead was a quiet place, full of gossip and small squabbles, but not the sort of village where people sent creepy notes or played dangerous games. Still, Miss Marple had seen enough of human nature to know that even sleepy villages could hide dark secrets. She'd solved mysteries before. Nothing big, just little things like missing brooches or who was sneaking apples from Mrs. Price's orchard. But this felt bigger, heavier, like a storm waiting to break. She flipped through the notebook again, her eyes scanning the entries. The dates went back 2 years, some lining up with village events she remembered. The summer fete, the church bazaar, the harvest dance. The sums of money grew larger as the dates got closer to now, starting at $50 and climbing to $1,000 in one entry. That was more money than most folks in St. Mary Mead saw in a year. One line, dated last spring, read, "CW, $500, X approves." Miss Marple's lips pressed into a thin line. Was Clara Wentworth paying someone, or being paid? And who was this X signing off like a boss? The clock struck 4, its chime pulling her from her thoughts. Dusk wasn't far off, and the note said the game would start then. She didn't know where or how, but she wasn't about to sit home and miss it. The village fete was happening tonight, a lively affair with stalls, games and half the village, crowding the green. If a game was starting, the fete was the place to look. Miss Marple set the notebook on her table next to her knitting and stood smoothing her skirt. She'd need her good shawl and her sturdy shoes. Mysteries didn't solve themselves, and she wasn't one to let a challenge pass her by. Desnoyers stepped outside. The air was cool and smelled of wood smoke and damp leaves. The village green wasn't far, just a short walk past the post office and the butcher's shop. St. Mary Mead glowed in the fading light, its cottages neat and cosy, their windows warm with lamplight. But Miss Marple's mind wasn't on their pretty scene. She was thinking about the notebook, the initials, and that word, game. It sounded fun, like checkers or cards. But the note's warning, "Only the sharpest will survive," made it feel more like a hunt, with someone or something watching. The fete was in full swing when she arrived. Lanterns hung from poles, casting a golden glow over the stalls. Children darted through the crowd, chasing each other with sticky toffee apples. Mrs. Price was selling her famous jam, and the vicar was trying his luck at the ring toss, laughing when he missed. Miss Marple smiled, nodding to folks she knew, but her eyes were busy, searching for anything out of place. She spotted Clara Wentworth near the cake stall, her silk dress catching the light. Clara was all smiles, chatting with Dr. Haydock, but her hands twisted her handkerchief, a sure sign she was nervous. Miss Marple made a note of it. Nervous people often had secrets. Then she saw Tommy Pierce, the butcher's apprentice, by the raffle table. Tommy was a lanky boy, barely 16, with a mop of red hair and a habit of whistling when he worked. He was good with numbers, always helping his dad with the shop's books, but tonight he looked jumpy, his eyes darting around like he expected trouble. Miss Marple watched him, wondering if his initials, TP, were in the notebook for a reason. Her gaze shifted to a stranger standing near the edge of the fete, half hidden by the shadow of a big oak tree. It was a young woman, maybe 25, with short, dark hair and a sharp, watchful face. She wore a plain coat and boots, not the frilly dresses most village girls favoured for the fete. Miss Marple didn't know her, which was odd. Strangers stood out in St. Mary Mead. The woman caught Miss Marple's eye and gave a small nod, like she knew she'd been seen. Then she stepped forward, weaving through the crowd with a purpose. "Evening," the woman said, stopping in front of Miss Marple. Her voice was low, with a city clip to it. "I'm Lily Finch. Just passing through, thought I'd see the fete." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Miss Marple returned the smile, her own warm but careful. "A pleasure, Miss Finch. I'm Jane Marple. Not many visitors come to St. Mary Mead. Are you staying long?" Lily shrugged, her hands in her Pockets. Depends. I'm a journalist, you see, always looking for a story. She glanced around, her eyes lingering on Clara Wentworth and Tommy Pierce. This village seems interesting. Miss Marple's mind clicked. A journalist here on the same day as the strange notebook. It was no coincidence. She didn't trust Lily's easy manner, but she didn't show it. "Oh, we're a quiet bunch," she said lightly. "But you never know what you'll find if you look close." Lily's lips twitched, like she caught the hint. Before she could say more, a loud bang split the air. The crowd gasped as a firecracker exploded near the raffle stall, sending sparks flying. Children screamed and folks ducked, laughing nervously when they realized it was just a prank. Miss Marple stayed calm, her eyes on Lily. In the chaos, she saw Lily slip closer to Tommy Pierce, her hand brushing his jacket. When she pulled back, Tommy didn't notice, but Miss Marple did. Lily had put something in his pocket. A note, maybe, or something worse. The fate went on, the scare forgotten, but Miss Marple's heart beat faster. She didn't like the look of that sneaky move. Was Lily part of the game, or playing her own? She thought about confronting her, but decided to wait. Mysteries needed time to unfold, like a flower opening its petals. She'd watch Lily, and Tommy, and Clara, and anyone else whose initials matched that notebook. As the sky darkened, the fate grew louder, with music from a fiddle and the clink of coins at the stalls. Miss Marple moved through the crowd, her small figure blending in, but her mind sharp as a tack. She stopped by Clara Wentworth, who was buying a slice of Victoria sponge. "Good evening, Clara," she said, her voice kind. "Enjoying the fete?" Clara jumped a little, her handkerchief twisting tighter. "Oh, Jane, yes, it's lovely. Just a bit loud, don't you think?" Her eyes flicked to the crowd, like she was looking for someone. "It is lively," Miss Marple agreed, watching Clara's face. "You seem a touch nervous, dear. Everything all right?" Clara forced a laugh. "Oh, I'm fine. Just the firecracker, you know. Gave me a start." She excused herself quickly, hurrying toward the tea tent. Miss Marple didn't follow. She'd seen enough to know Clara was hiding something. She turned her attention to Tommy, who was still at the raffle stall selling tickets. He looked paler now, his hands shaking as he handed out change. Miss Marple edged closer, pretending to study the prizes. A knitted blanket, a jar of pickles, a bottle of elderberry wine. "Evening, Tommy," she said, her smile grandmotherly. "You're doing a fine job here." Tommy blinked, startled. "Oh, Miss Marple, thanks. It's, busy tonight." He rubbed his neck, his eyes darting to his pocket, where Lily's note, or whatever it was, sat. "Busy indeed," Miss Marple said. "You take care now. It's easy to get caught up in all this excitement." She gave him a knowing look, soft but pointed, and moved on before he could squirm. The fete was winding down, the lanterns flickering as the night grew chilly. Miss Marple decided to head home, her mind buzzing with questions. The notebook, the note, Lily Finch, Clara's nerves, Tommy's fear. It was all connected, she was sure. The game had started just as the note promised, and she was already a player, whether she liked it or not. Back in her parlour, she lit a lamp and opened the notebook again. The entries stared back at her, stubborn and secret. She traced the line, about CW and X, her finger pausing on the red circle around $500. "A game," she said again, her voice firm, "and I'll play it better than they expect." She didn't know who they were yet, but she'd find out. Miss Marple always did. She tucked the notebook into a drawer, locked it, and picked up her knitting. The needles clicked softly, a steady rhythm that matched her thoughts. Dusk was gone, night had settled, and the game was on. St. Mary Mead wasn't so quiet anymore, and Miss Marple was ready for whatever came next. Chapter 2. The First Move. The morning after the fete, St. Mary Mead woke to a grey sky, heavy with the promise of rain. Miss Jane Marple sat at her kitchen table, a pot of tea steaming beside her, the mysterious notebook open before her. Its leather cover was soft under her fingers, worn from years of use, and the pages inside were a tangle of secrets. Dates, initials, sums of money, and that single chilling note. The game begins at dusk, and only the sharpest will survive. She'd stayed up late, her lamp burning low, trying to make sense of the entries. The initials CW, likely Clara Wentworth, kept popping up, tied to big sums and the mysterious X. Others, like RL and TP, were less clear, but she had a hunch. TP was Tommy Pierce, the butcher's apprentice she'd seen at the fete, jumpy and pale. Miss Marple sipped her tea, her sharp eyes scanning the notebook. The entries weren't random. They followed a rhythm, like steps in a dance. Dates matched village events, fetes, bazaars, dances, and the money grew bigger over time, from $50 to $1,000. One line circled in red read, CW, $500, X approves. It felt important, like a clue to the game's heart. She thought of Clara Wentworth, twisting her handkerchief at the fete, and Tommy Pierce with his nervous glances. Then there was Lily Finch, the stranger who called herself a journalist, slipping something into Tommy's pocket when the firecracker went off. Miss Marple's lips pursed. Lily was part of this, no doubt, but was she a player or a pawn? A knock at the door pulled her from her thoughts. It was Mrs. Price, the postmistress, her face pale as milk. "Oh, Miss Marple, it's awful!" she gasped, clutching her shawl. "Tommy Pierce is dead! Found this morning in the churchyard, stabbed clean through." Miss Marple's heart sank, though her face stayed calm. "Dead?" she said softly, setting her cup down. "Tell me everything, dear." Mrs. Price didn't need coaxing. She spilled the story as they stood in the doorway, her words tumbling out. Tommy had been found at dawn by the vicar, lying near the church gate, a knife wound in his chest. His face was frozen in fear, and his hand clutched a scrap of paper. The police, led by Inspector Slack, were there now, but the village was buzzing with shock. "Who'd hurt a boy like Tommy?" Mrs. Price wailed. "He was a good lad, always whistling, helping his dad." Miss Marple patted her arm. "It's a terrible thing," she said. "Did they say anything about that paper he was holding?" Mrs. Price nodded, her eyes wide. The vicar saw it before the police took it. It had words on it, strange ones. "Pawn takes pawn. The board shrinks." "What's that mean, Miss Marple?" Miss Marple's mind clicked, like a key turning in a lock. "Thank you, Mrs. Price," she said, her voice gentle but firm. "You go rest now. I'll see what I can do." As Mrs. Price shuffled off, Miss Marple closed the door and leaned against it, her thoughts racing. Pawn takes pawn. It was chess, a game of strategy and sacrifice. Tommy was the first piece taken. and the note proved this wasn't a random killing. It was part of the game, the one the notebook had warned her about. She hurried back to the table, her shawl slipping off her shoulders. The notebook's entries took on new weight now. Tommy's initials TP appeared in a few lines tied to smaller sums, 20 tals, 50 tals, like he was a runner, maybe carrying messages or money. Had he known too much, or crossed someone dangerous? She thought of Lily Finch, her quick hands slipping that note into Tommy's pocket. Was it a warning, or something worse? Miss Marple knew she couldn't sit still. She needed to see the churchyard, talk to the police, and find Lily. She pulled on her coat, grabbed her umbrella, for the sky was spitting rain now, and locked the notebook in her desk drawer. The village was only a short walk, but every step felt heavy, like she was moving across a chessboard, watched by unseen eyes. The churchyard was a mess when she arrived. Rain had turned the grass to mud, and a small crowd huddled under umbrellas, whispering. Inspector Slack, a gruff man with a red face, was barking orders to his constables, who were roping off the spot where Tommy had been found. The vicar, Mr. Thorne, stood nearby, his face grey, clutching his prayer book. Miss Marple slipped through the crowd, her small figure barely noticed, and approached the vicar. "Good morning, Mr. Thorne," she said, her voice soft but clear. "Such a dreadful thing. Poor Tommy." The vicar blinked, startled to see her. "Oh, Miss Marple. Yes, dreadful. I found him at dawn, you know, right by the gate. I thought he was sleeping at first, but then—" His voice broke, and he shook his head. Miss Marple nodded, her eyes kind but sharp. Mrs. Price mentioned a note. "Did you see it?" Mr. Thorne hesitated, glancing at Inspector Slack, who was busy shouting at a constable. "I did," he whispered. "It said, 'Pawn takes pawn. The board shrinks.' I don't understand it, but it gave me chills." "Thank you," Miss Marple said, patting his arm. She didn't press further. The vicar was shaken, and Slack would be no help. He'd already dismissed her in the past as a nosy old spinster, though she'd solved cases he'd bungled. Instead, she studied the scene. The churchyard was quiet now. The body gone, but muddy footprints led from the gate to a patch of grass near a yew tree. She squinted, noticing a glint in the mud, a button, small and brass, like one from a man's coat. She didn't touch it. The police would find it, or they wouldn't. But she tucked the detail away, like a card up her sleeve. As she turned to leave, she spotted Lily Finch at the edge of the crowd, her short hair damp from the rain, her eyes fixed on the churchyard. Lily saw her and walked over, her boots squelching in the mud. "Miss Marple," she said, her voice low. "Heard about Tommy? Awful, isn't it?" "Awful, yes," Miss Marple said, her tone mild, but her gaze steady. "You were at the fete last night, Miss Finch, near Tommy, when that firecracker went off." Lily's eyes flickered, but she didn't flinch. "Was I? It was a crowded night, hard to keep track." She paused, then leaned closer. "Look, I know you're sharp. I saw you watching everyone. I'm not here to make trouble, but I'm looking into something big. Tommy was mixed up in it." Miss Marple raised an eyebrow. "And what might that be?" Lily glanced around, making sure no one was close. "A syndicate," she whispered, "moving money through villages like this one. Tommy was a small part, running errands, maybe passing notes, but he wanted out. I tried to warn him last night." "With the note you slipped in his pocket?" Miss Marple said, her voice soft but pointed. Lily froze, then gave a small, grudging smile. "You don't miss much, do you?" "Yeah, I gave him a note. Told him to meet me, to talk about getting clear. But he never showed." Miss Marple studied her, weighing her words. Lily's story made sense, but it didn't feel whole. Journalists, or whatever Lily really was, didn't just wander into St. Mary Mead and sniff out syndicates. Still, she knew things, and Miss Marple needed answers. "Why tell me this, Miss Finch?" she asked. Lily shrugged, but her eyes were serious. "Because you're not like the others here. You see things. I need someone smart to help me figure this out. Tommy's dead and it's not the end. This syndicate, they don't stop." Miss Marple didn't trust Lily, not yet, but she saw a chance. "Very well," she said. "I'll share what I know, but I expect the same from you. No secrets." "Deal," Lily said, holding out her hand. Miss Marple shook it, her grip firm despite her age. It was an odd partnership, this young city girl and the village spinster. But Miss Marple had learned long ago that help could come from strange places. They agreed to meet later at the Blue Boar Inn, where Lily was staying. Miss Marple wanted to check the notebook again, to see if Tommy's death fit its pattern. As she walked home, the rain pattering on her umbrella, she thought about the note. Pawn takes pawn. In chess, pawns were the weakest pieces, often sacrificed early. Tommy was young, not powerful, just a boy caught in something bigger. But who was the other pawn? And who was moving the pieces? Back in her parlour, she unlocked her drawer and pulled out the notebook. The entries seemed darker now, stained by Tommy's blood. She found TP in 3 places, each tied to small sums, 20s, 30 $50, and dates that matched deliveries to the butcher's shop. Had Tommy been passing money along with the meat? She noticed another entry, dated last week, TP, $50, ex-warns. Her breath caught. Ex-warns. Had Tommy been told to stay quiet and killed when he didn't? She flipped to the note about the game, rereading it. The game begins at dusk, and only the sharpest will survive. The fate was dusk, and Tommy's death was the first move. She thought of chess again, the board shrinking as pieces fell. The notebook was the key, she was sure, but it held more than money and initials. It was a map of the game, and she needed to learn its rules fast. Miss Marple closed the notebook and stood, her knees creaking. She'd go to the Blue Boar and talk to Lily. But first, she wanted to see Clara Wentworth. Clara's nerves at the fate and her initials in the notebook made her a piece on the board. Maybe a queen, maybe a pawn. Miss Marple pulled on her coat again, her mind sharp as a blade. The rain was heavier now, drumming on the roof, but she didn't care. The game was moving, and she wouldn't be left behind. She found Clara at her manor, sitting in the drawing room, a fire crackling in the grate. Clara looked tired, her eyes red, like she'd been crying. "Jane," she said, forcing a smile, "what brings you out in this weather?" "Just checking on you, dear," Miss Marple said, settling into a chair. "The news about Tommy is dreadful. You knew him, didn't you?" Clara nodded, her hands twisting a lace handkerchief. "He was a sweet boy. Delivered meat sometimes. I can't believe—" Her voice trailed off, and she looked away. Miss Marple watched her closely. "It's a strange thing, isn't it? A boy like that, caught in trouble. Makes you wonder what's going on in our little village." Clara's eyes flicked to her, sharp for a moment, then soft again. "Oh, it's just a terrible accident, I'm sure. The police will sort it out." "Maybe," Miss Marple said, her tone light. "But I've heard odd things. Notes, games, secrets. You haven't noticed anything, have you?" Clara's hands froze, the handkerchief taut. "No, nothing," she said quickly. "Why would I?" Miss Marple smiled, kind but knowing. "No reason, dear. Just an old woman's curiosity." She stood excusing herself, but her mind was buzzing. Clara was scared, and scared people lied. She was, and the notebook tied to X, and Miss Marple would find out why. As she left the manor, the rain eased, leaving the air cold and damp. The village felt different now, its cosy cottages hiding shadows. Miss Marple headed for the Blue Boar, where Lily waited. The game was on, and Tommy's death was only the start. She thought of the note again. The board shrinks, and felt a chill. Who was next, and could she stop them? With Lily's help, maybe she could. But she'd keep her eyes on Lily too. In chess, even allies could turn. Chapter 3. The Queen's Gambit. The rain had stopped by midday, leaving St. Mary Mead damp and glistening under a weak sun. Miss Jane Marple sat in the quiet of the Blue Boar Inn's tea-room, her hands folded neatly in her lap. Across from her, Lily Finch leaned forward, her short hair falling into her eyes as she whispered about the syndicate she was chasing. The leather-bound notebook, now tucked safely in Miss Marple's handbag, weighed on her mind. Its cryptic entries, dates, initials like CW, RL and TP, and sums of money tied to the mysterious X, had taken on a deadly edge since Tommy Pierce's murder in the churchyard. The note found with his body, "Pawn takes pawn." The board, shrinks, had confirmed this was no ordinary crime. It was a chess game, and Tommy was the first piece lost. Miss Marple sipped her tea, her sharp eyes fixed on Lily. The young woman's story was bold. A syndicate moving dirty money through, small villages using folks like Tommy to run errands or pass notes. Lily claimed she'd warned Tommy to get out, slipping a note into his pocket at the fete, but he'd been killed before they could meet. Miss Marple believed parts of it. Lily knew too much to be lying completely, but her claim of being a journalist felt thin. Her quick moves and sharp glances were more like a detective's, or something shadier. Still, Miss Marple needed her. The notebook's secrets were deep, and Lily's knowledge could help crack them. "We need to figure out who's next," Lily said, her voice low so the inn's other patrons, 2 farmers and a maid, wouldn't hear. Tommy was a pawn, small fry, the syndicate's cleaning house, getting rid of loose ends. Miss Marple nodded, her face calm, but her mind racing. "The notebook mentions CW often," she said. "Clara Wentworth, I'm sure. She was nervous. At the fete, and yesterday at her manor, she was hiding something. But there's also RL. Could that be Robert Lyle, the landlord here?" Lily's eyes lit up. "Lyle? He's been jumpy lately. I saw him at the bar last night, sweating, checking the door like he expected trouble. If he's in the notebook, he's involved." Miss Marple thought back to the notebook's entries. RL appeared in a few lines, tied to sums of $100 or $200 with one note. RL, $150, X watches. It sounded like Robert Lyle was being watched, maybe pressured. She'd seen him at the Blue Boar before, a big man with a loud laugh. But lately he'd been quiet, his eyes darting. "Let's talk to him," she said, "but carefully. If he's scared, he'll clam up." They finished their tea and moved to the bar, where Robert Lyle was polishing glasses, his hands shaking slightly. The pub was nearly empty, the lunch crowd gone. Miss Marple smiled warmly as they approached. "Good afternoon, Mr. Lyle," she said, her voice soft as a grandmother's. "A busy day, I expect." Lyle looked up, startled, and nearly dropped a glass. "Oh, Miss Marple. Not too busy, no, just keeping on." His eyes flicked to Lily, then back to the bar, like he didn't trust her. Lily leaned on the counter, her tone casual. "Heard about Tommy Pierce. Awful, huh? You knew him, didn't you? He came here sometimes." Lyle's face tightened. "Aye, he did. Nice lad. Terrible what happened." He scrubbed a glass harder, his knuckles white. Miss Marple watched him closely, noting the sweat on his brow. "It's strange, isn't it?" she said, her voice light. "All this talk of notes and games makes you wonder what's going on in our little village. You haven't seen anything odd, have you, Mr. Lyle?" His hand froze, and for a moment his eyes met hers, wide with fear. "Nothing odd," he muttered. "Just a pub, that's all." But his gaze darted to a locked drawer under the bar, so quick Miss Marple almost missed it. Lily caught it too, and pushed harder. "Come on, Robert. You look like you've seen a ghost. If you know something, spill it. Tommy's dead, and it's not random." Lyle slammed the glass down, his voice sharp. "I don't know nothing. Leave it, all right?" He turned away, busying himself with a crate of bottles, but his shoulders were tense. Miss Marple touched Lily's arm, a signal to back off. "Thank you, Mr. Lyle," she said sweetly. "We'll let you get back to work." She led Lily outside, where the air was cool and smelled of wet grass. "He's scared," she said quietly. "And that drawer, he's hiding something in it." Lily nodded, her jaw tight. "I say we come back tonight, when he's busy. I can pick that lock, see what's inside." Miss Marple frowned. "That's risky, Miss Finch. If he's part of this syndicate, he's dangerous, or in danger. We need to be sure." But she agreed to watch the pub later. If Lyle was RL, his secrets could point to X, the game's mastermind. They parted ways, Lily to check her sources in the village, and Miss Marple to her cottage. She wanted to study the notebook again, to see if RL's entries held more clues. At home, she locked the door and pulled the notebook from her handbag, its weight familiar now. She flipped through the pages, her eyes scanning the tight scrawl. RL appeared 5 times, always with sums and short notes. RL, $100, delivery. RL, $200, X approves. RL, $150, X watches. The last one, dated 3 days ago, felt like a warning. Was Lyle being watched because he was slipping, or because he knew too much, like Tommy? She thought about the chess game. Tommy was a pawn, sacrificed early. Lyle could be another pawn, or something bigger. A knight, maybe, with more moves but still at risk. The note's words, "The board shrinks," echoed in her mind. The game was speeding up, and she needed to stay ahead. That evening, Miss Marple met Lily outside the Blue Boar. The pub was lively, filled with farmers and shopkeepers, the air thick with laughter and the clink of glasses. Lyle was behind the egg orchard bar pouring pints, but his eyes kept darting to the door. Miss Marple and Lily slipped inside, taking a table in the corner. "Wait for the right moment," Miss Marple whispered. "When he's distracted." Lily nodded, her fingers tapping impatiently. They ordered tea, keeping up the act of two, women chatting, but their eyes were on Lyle. Around 9, a group of rowdy men started a dart game, pulling Lyle's attention. Lily gave Miss Marple a nod and slipped toward the bar, her movements quick and quiet. Miss Marple watched, her heart thumping, ready to distract if needed. But before Lily could reach the drawer, a shout came from outside. "Fire!" someone yelled, and the pub erupted in chaos. Patrons rushed to the door, Lyle among them, his face pale. Miss Marple grabbed Lily's arm, pulling her back. "Not now!" she hissed. They followed the crowd outside, where flames licked the side of the pub's storage shed, smoke curling into the night sky. Lyle ran toward the shed, shouting for water. Villagers formed a bucket line, dousing the flames. But the shed was a loss. Miss Marple's eyes narrowed as she spotted something in the chaos. A piece of paper pinned to the pub's door, flapping in the breeze. She moved closer, her small figure unnoticed, and read the words scrawled in bold ink. "Night falls. The Queen moves." Her breath caught. Another chess move, and another warning. She glanced at Lyle, who was staring at the burning shed, his face a mix of fear and despair. The drawer. He'd kept something there, and now it was likely gone, turned to ash. Lily joined her, her eyes wide. "Another note," she whispered. "This is bad." Miss Marple nodded, her mind racing. "The fire wasn't an accident," she said. "Someone wanted those papers destroyed. And Lyle, he's the knight, I think. But who's the Queen?" Lily's jaw tightened. "Clara Wentworth. She's got the money, the manner, the pull. She's got to be running this, or at least helping X." Miss Marple wasn't so sure. Clara was scared, not commanding, but she couldn't rule her out. "We need to watch her," she said. "And Lyle. If he's the knight, he's in danger, or dangerous." The fire was out by 10, the shed a smouldering ruin. Lyle stood among the crowd, soaked and shaking, his eyes hollow. Miss Marple felt a pang of pity, but she pushed it aside. Pity wouldn't solve this. She and Lily slipped away, agreeing to meet the next day. As Miss Marple walked home, the note's words echoed, "The Queen moves." In chess, the Queen was the most powerful piece, able to strike anywhere. If Clara was the Queen, or someone else was, the game was about to get deadlier. At her cottage, Miss Marple lit a lamp and opened the notebook again. The RL entries now felt urgent, like a ticking clock. She noticed a pattern. The sums tied to Lyle were paid on nights when the pub was busy, like during village dances or darts nights. Was he passing money through the pub, hiding it in plain sight? She thought of the locked drawer, now likely ash, and wondered what it held. More notes, names, proof of X. She leaned back, her knitting untouched on the table. The chess game was clearer now. Tommy, the pawn, was gone. Lyle the knight was shaken, his secrets burned. The Queen was moving, and X was watching, pulling strings. Miss Marple thought of Clara, her nervous hands and red eyes, and Lily, bold but secretive. Could Lily be the Queen playing a double game? Or was X someone else, hiding in the village's shadows? She locked the notebook away and stood, her knees stiff from sitting. Tomorrow she'd visit Clara again, probe deeper. She'd also keep an eye on Lyle, see if he cracked under pressure. And Lily, she'd watch her closest of all. Allies were useful, but trust was dangerous in a game where pieces fell so fast. As she climbed the stairs to bed, the wind rattled, her windows like a warning. St. Mary Mead wasn't sleepy anymore. It was a chessboard, and Miss Marple was in the middle, her sharp mind her only weapon. She thought of the note's final words. The board shrinks. It was shrinking fast, and she had to move before the next piece fell. Chapter 4. An Unlikely Partnership. The morning sun broke through the clouds, casting a pale light over St. Mary Mead. Miss Jane Marple sat in her parlour, the leather-bound notebook open on her lap, its pages a maze of initials, dates and sums that grew darker with each death. Tommy Pierce's murder in the churchyard, marked by the note "Pawn takes pawn." The board shrinks had been the first move in a deadly chess game. The fire at the Blue Boar Inn's shed last night, with its chilling message, "Night falls, the Queen moves," was the second. Robert Lyle, the pub landlord and likely the notebook's RL, was shaken, his secrets burned to ash. Miss Marple's sharp eyes traced the entries, lingering on C.W. Clara Wentworth, and the mysterious X, who seemed to pull the strings. The game was speeding up, and she needed to stay ahead. Her unlikely ally, Lily Finch, was waiting at the vicarage, where they'd agreed to meet away from prying eyes. Lily, with her city swagger and claim of being a journalist, had revealed she was hunting a syndicate moving dirty money through villages like St. Mary Mead. Tommy had been a small player, running errands, and Miss Marple suspected Lyle was deeper in, maybe handling cash through his pub. But Lily's bold moves, like trying to pick Lyle's locked drawer before the fire, clashed with Miss Marple's careful steps. Still, Lily knew things the notebook only hinted at, and Miss Marple needed her, even if trust was thin. She tucked the notebook into her handbag, pulled on her coat, and stepped into the crisp morning. The village was quiet, its cottages neat but heavy with gossip about Tommy's death and the fire. As she walked to the vicarage, her mind churned. The chess game was clear now. Tommy was a pawn, sacrificed early. Lyle, the knight, was targeted, but still standing. The Queen, maybe Clara Wentworth, maybe someone else, was moving, and X was the mastermind. The notebook's entries like CW $500, X approves, and RL 150 shares, X watches, were a map of the board. But the next move was murky. At the vicarage, the vicar, Mr. Thorne, welcomed her with a nervous smile, offering tea in his cluttered study. Lily was already there, perched on a chair, her boots muddy from the morning's wanderings. "Morning, Miss Marple," she said, her voice low. "Heard anything new?" Miss Marple settled into a chair, her handbag on her lap. "Only whispers," she said. "The village is scared, and Mr. Lyle's keeping to himself. But the notebook, it's got more to tell us." She glanced at the vicar, who was fussing with the teapot. "Mr. Thorne, might we have a moment alone, just to chat?" The vicar blinked, then nodded. "Of course, Miss Marple. I'll be in the garden if you need me." He shuffled out, leaving them in the quiet study, the air smelling of old books and wax polish. Miss Marple opened the notebook, her fingers careful. "I've been looking at the patterns," she said. "The sums match village events, fetes, dances, busy nights at the pub. Tommy's entries were small, like he was a messenger. Lyle's are bigger, and X is watching him. But there's something else." She pointed to a line. "TV, $100, X notes. TV could be Mr. Thorne, and this was dated last week." Lily's eyes widened. "The vicar? He's in on this?" "Maybe," Miss Marple said, "or he's being used like Tommy. We need to know what he's seen." She explained her theory. The notebook's sums were coded chess moves, with dates marking plays. Tommy's death was a pawn's capture, the fire a knight's fall. The next move, she guessed, was a bishop's diagonal strike. Bold, cutting across the board. In chess, bishops were cunning, striking from afar, and the vicar, with his quiet influence, fit the role. Lily leaned back, her fingers tapping. "So, the vicar's next. We warn him, but we also dig. If he's TV, he knows something about X or Clara." Miss Marple nodded, though she wasn't sure about warning the vicar yet. "We must be careful," she said. "If he's involved, he'll hide it. If he's not, he's in danger. Either way, we need more from the notebook." She flipped to a page with a faint pencil mark, a grid of numbers she'd overlooked before. It looked like a chessboard, with initials in certain squares, CW on the queen's spot, RL on a knight's, TP on a pawn's. TV sat on a bishop's square, and X was nowhere. Maybe the player, not a piece. "This is it," Lily said, her voice sharp. "The game's laid out here. We just need to read it right." They spent an hour decoding the grid, matching initials to moves. The pattern confirmed Miss Marple's hunch. The next strike would target the vicar, likely soon given the game's pace. They agreed to watch him, but first they needed to check on Clara Wentworth. Her initials were everywhere in the notebook, and her fear at the manor yesterday screamed secrets. As they left the vicarage, the vicar was in his garden clipping roses. Miss Marple paused, her smile warm. "Mr. Thorne, you've been so kind. Have you noticed anything odd lately? Strange visitors, maybe, or talk of money?" The vicar laughed, brushing dirt from his hands. "Odd? In St. Mary Mead? Just the usual gossip, Miss Marple. And I'm no chess player, if that's what you're thinking." His eyes twinkled, but his hands shook slightly, betraying nerves. Miss Marple nodded, filing it away. "Just curious, dear, take care." She and Lily walked on, the vicar's laugh echoing behind them. "He's hiding something," she murmured. "But he's not the queen. Too jittery." Lily smirked. "Clara's still my bet. Let's go to her manor, shake her up a bit." Miss Marple hesitated. "Not shake, miss. Finch. Prod gently. She's scared, and scared people break if you push too hard." Lily rolled her eyes but agreed, and they headed to Wentworth Manor, its tall chimneys looming over the village. Clara was in her drawing room, surrounded by velvet curtains and polished silver. She looked worse than yesterday, her face pale, her eyes darting to the windows. "Jane, Miss Finch," she said, her voice thin. "What brings you here?" "Just a visit," Miss Marple said, settling into a plush chair. "The village is upset, with Tommy's death and the fire. You must be feeling it too, dear." Clara's hands twisted her handkerchief, nearly tearing it. "It's awful," she said. "Poor Tommy. And Robert Lyle. I heard his shed burned. What's happening to us?" Lily, blunt as ever, leaned forward. "Clara, we know you're tied to something big. Money, secrets, maybe a syndicate. Spill it, or things'll get worse." Clara gasped, her eyes wide. "A syndicate? I don't know what you mean. I'm just a widow, trying to live quietly." Miss Marple shot Lily a warning look, then softened her tone. "Clara, we're not accusing you, but we've heard things, notes, games, money moving through the village. If you know anything, even a little, it could help." Clara's lips trembled, and for a moment Miss Marple thought she'd crack. But she shook her head. "I don't know anything. Please, leave me be." Her voice was desperate, her eyes pleading. They left the manor, Lily fuming. "She's lying," she said. "She's in it up to her neck, I'd bet my boots." "Maybe," Miss Marple said, her mind on Clara's fear. "But she's not the queen. She's a piece, not the player." She thought of the notebook's grid, with CW on the Queen's square. It didn't fit. Clara was too rattled to be calling shots. The real Queen was bolder, hidden. Back at her cottage, Miss Marple and Lily pored over the notebook again. The iron chess grid was their best clue, but it was incomplete, missing X's place. They mapped the moves. Tommy's death was a pawn's capture, Lyle's fire a knight's scare, the Bishop TV's entry, TV $100, X notes, pointed to the vicar, and the next move was a bishop's strike. They needed to protect him, but how? Miss Marple suggested they shadow him, keeping watch without alarming him. Lily, restless, wanted to confront him, but Miss Marple insisted on patience. "We watch, we learn," she said. "Rush in, and we lose the board." That evening they followed the vicar as he walked to the church, his steps slow, his head down. The village was dark, the air cold, and Miss Marple's heart pounded as they hid behind a hedge. The vicar entered the church, lighting a candle, and began praying, his voice a low murmur. Miss Marple watched, her eyes sharp, when a shadow moved near the door, a figure tall and cloaked slipping inside. Lily tensed, ready to charge, but Miss Marple grabbed her arm. "Wait," she whispered. The figure approached the vicar, a knife glinting in the candlelight. Miss Marple's breath caught, but Lily was faster. She burst into the church shouting, "Stop!" The figure spun, startled, and lunged at the vicar, but Lily tackled him, knocking the knife away. The vicar fell, unharmed but shaken, as the figure, a man with a scarred face, fled into the night. Miss Marple rushed to the vicar's side, helping him up. "Are you hurt, Mr. Thorne?" she asked, her voice steady. I'm fine," he stammered, his face pale. "Who was that?" Lily, panting, picked up the knife, and a note dropped by the attacker. It read, "Bishop retreats, check." Miss Marple's heart sank. Another move, another warning. The vicar, trembling, confessed. He'd overheard Clara talking to a man called X in the church, discussing payments he thought were for charity. "It felt wrong," he said, "but I didn't know what to do." Miss Marple exchanged a look with Lily. X was real and close. The vicar was safe for now, but the game wasn't over. They escorted him home, promising to explain later, and returned to Miss Marple's cottage, the note burning in her pocket. Over tea, Lily revealed her secret. She wasn't a journalist, but an undercover agent for a government task force, tracking the syndicate. X is their leader, she said, and I think Clara's working for him, scared or not. Miss Marple nodded, her mind on the notebook's grid. The vicar's escape was a retreat, not a loss, but X was closing in. The partnership with Lily, uneasy at first, was solidifying. Lily's bravery had saved the vicar, and Miss Marple's caution kept them grounded. They were an odd pair, young and old, bold and careful, but together they were a force. As Lily left, Miss Marple locked the notebook away, her knitting untouched. The board was shrinking, the Queen was moving, and X was watching. She thought of Clara, the vicar, Lyle, and the scarred man who'd fled. The game was deadly, but she was ready. With Lily by her side, she'd find X and end this, one careful move at a time. Chapter 5. The Queen's Secret. The dawn light crept through St. Mary Mead, soft and grey, but the village felt heavy with secrets. Miss Jane Marple sat by her parlour window, the leather-bound notebook open on her lap, its worn pages a map of a deadly chess game. Tommy Pierce's murder, marked by Pawn Takes Pawn, the board shrinks, had been the opening move. The fire at Robert Lyle's pub shed, with Night Falls, the Queen moves, was the second. Last night's attack on the vicar, Mr. Thorne, stopped by Lily Finch's quick tackle, came with Bishop retreats, check. Each move was in the notebook, tied to initials, CW for Clara Wentworth, RL for Lyle, TV for the vicar, and the shadowy X, the game's mastermind. Miss Marple's sharp eyes traced the entries, her mind piecing together the syndicate Lily was chasing, moving money through the village's quiet corners. Lily, now revealed as an undercover agent, not a journalist, had saved the vicar, cementing her place as Miss Marple's ally. Their partnership was odd, Lily's bold city ways clashing with Miss Marple's careful village wisdom, but it worked. The notebook's chess grid, with initials on squares, showed the game's shape. Tommy, a pawn, was gone. Lyle, a knight, was shaken. The vicar, a bishop, had escaped. Clara, on the Queen's Square, was key, her fear at the manor hiding something big. Miss Marple sipped her tea, the cup warm in her hands, and planned their next step. Get to Clara's secrets, find X, and stop the game before the board shrank further. Lily arrived at 9, her boots muddy, her eyes bright with urgency. "We need to hit Clara's manor," she said, pacing the parlour. "She's cracking. I saw it yesterday. If she's the Queen or knows X, we can break her." Miss Marple set her cup down, her voice calm. "Not break, Miss Finch. Clara's scared, not strong. We nudge, we watch, we learn. Rush in, and she'll shut tight." She pulled the notebook from her handbag, pointing to a line. CW, unshakable, X demands. This was last month. Clara's deep in, but not by choice, I think. Lily frowned but nodded. "Fine, we nudge. But we need something solid. That notebook's got half the story. Clara's got the rest." Miss Marple agreed, but her mind lingered on the vicar's story. He'd overheard Clara talking to X in the church about payments he thought were charity. It pointed to Clara as a pawn, not a queen, forced to play. They needed proof, and the manor was the place to look. Miss Marple suggested a ruse, a charity meeting to get inside, where Lily could distract Clara while she snooped. Lily grinned, liking the plan's sneakiness, and they set off, the notebook tucked safely in Miss Marple's bag. Wentworth Manor loomed at the village's edge, its stone walls cold despite the sun. Clara met them at the door, her silk dress perfect, but her face pale, shadows under her eyes. "Jane, Miss Finch," she said, her voice thin. "A charity meeting? I wasn't expecting." "Just a small thing, dear," Miss Marple said, her smile warm. "We thought you'd like to help with the church fund. May we come in?" Clara hesitated, her hands twisting a lace handkerchief, but nodded. "Of course. The drawing rooms? This way." She led them inside, her steps quick, like she wanted this over fast. The drawing room was grand, with velvet curtains and a roaring fire, but it felt stifling, like secrets hung in the air. Lily launched into a fake pitch about the church fund, her voice loud, keeping Clara's eyes on her. Miss Marple sipped tea, her sharp gaze wandering. A portrait of Clara's late husband, Edward Wentworth, hung above the fireplace, his stern face watching. She remembered whispers about his death 2 years ago. A heart attack, some said, but others hinted at poison. Clara had inherited everything, and now her initials were all over the notebook. Was Edward tied to X? As Lily rambled about hymnals, Miss Marple excused herself, saying she needed the powder room. Clara pointed her down the hall, distracted by Lily's chatter. Miss Marple moved quietly, her sensible shoes silent on the polished floor. She didn't go to the bathroom, but slipped into the library, a dim room lined with books and heavy furniture. Her instincts told her Clara hid something here. Papers, maybe, or another notebook. She scanned the shelves, her fingers brushing leather spines, when she noticed the portrait of Edward again, smaller, on the wall. Its frame was slightly crooked, like it had been moved. Heart-pounding, she pressed the frame, and it clicked, swinging open to reveal a small safe. Miss Marple's lips curved. "Clever," she murmured. The safe had a combination lock, and she had no code, but she memorized its make. Old, brass, easy to crack with time. She was about to close the portrait when footsteps echoed in the hall. Miss Marple shut the frame, grabbed a book, and pretended to read as Clara entered, her face tight. "Jane, you're not in the powder room." "Oh, Clara, I'm sorry," Miss Marple said, her voice sweet. "I got lost and saw your lovely library. Such fine books." She held up the volume, a dull history of gardening, and smiled. Clara's eyes narrowed, but she forced a smile. "It's fine. Come back to the drawing room, please." Her voice shook, and Miss Marple knew she'd been caught, but not fully. Back with Lily, Miss Marple gave a tiny nod, signalling her find. They wrapped up the fake meeting, promising to return with details, and left. Outside, Lily grabbed her arm. "What did you find? You've got that look." "A safe," Miss Marple said, her voice low. "Behind a portrait in the library. Clara's hiding something, but we need to get inside it." Lily's eyes gleamed. "I can pick a safe. We come back tonight when she's asleep." Miss Marple frowned. "Too dangerous." If Clara's watched by X, the manor's not safe. We need a plan, not a break-in. But she agreed to think on it. They parted, Lily to check the village for news, Miss Marple to her cottage to dig into the notebook. At home, she locked the door and opened the notebook, her lamp casting shadows on the pages. The chess grid was clearer now, CW on the Queen's Square. But Clara's fear didn't fit a mastermind. A new entry caught her eye, faint in pencil. CW, 2000 hours X threatens. Dated 3 days ago, it screamed coercion. Clara was being squeezed, not leading. Miss Marple thought of the safe. Papers, maybe, proving X's hold over her. She was still puzzling when Lily knocked, breathless. "I got something," she said, slipping inside. "Talked to a maid at the manor. Clara's been getting letters, no sender, delivered at night. The maid saw one, black envelope, red seal. Creepy?" Miss Marple's heart quickened. "X's letters, I'd wager. We need to see them." She told Lily about the safe, and they hatched a new plan. Another visit tomorrow, with Lily causing a bigger distraction, maybe a fake faint, to give Miss Marple time to crack the safe. It was risky, but the game was closing in, and they needed answers. The next morning, they returned to the manor, armed with a story about a charity raffle. Clara looked worse, her hands trembling as she let them in. "You're back so soon," she said, her voice brittle. "We're excited, dear," Miss Marple said, her smile disarming. "We've got big plans." Lily launched into a loud tale about raffle prizes, her hands waving, drawing Clara's focus. Miss Marple waited, then slipped away again, claiming a headache needing quiet. Clara, flustered, barely noticed. In the library, Miss Marple opened the portrait, her fingers steady. The safe's lock was old, and she'd brought a hairpin, knowing simple tricks from a long-ago case. She worked fast, her ears sharp for footsteps, and after a tense minute, the lock clicked. Inside was a second notebook, thinner, and a stack of black envelopes with red seals. She grabbed the notebook, too bulky to hide, and one envelope, tucking them into her shawl. As she closed the safe, Clara's voice echoed, closer than expected. Miss Marple shut the portrait, grabbed the gardening book again, and sat just as Clara burst in. "Jane, you're here again!" she snapped, her eyes wild. "What are you doing?" "Reading, dear," Miss Marple said, holding up the book, her voice calm. "I needed a quiet spot. I'm sorry if I worried you." Clara stared, her chest heaving, then sagged. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered, almost to herself. "It's not safe." Miss Marple's heart ached for her fear, but her mind stayed sharp. "Clara, who's making you afraid? Tell me, and I can help." Clara's eyes filled with tears. "You don't understand," she said, her voice breaking. "It's Xavier. He won't let me go." She froze, like she'd said too much, and turned away. "Please, go." Miss Marple didn't push. She rejoined Lily, who'd kept Clara's maid busy, and they left, the stolen notebook and envelope hidden. Outside, Lily was buzzing. "Xavier! That's X! We've got him!" "Not yet," Miss Marple said, her voice firm, "but we're close." At her cottage, they opened the envelope first. Inside was a single sheet, written in bold ink. "Pay or perish. X." The notebook was worse. Pages of transactions. Bigger. Sums, 5,000, 10,000, naming Clara and others, all marked Xavier demands. One entry, dated yesterday, read, CW, $3,000. Xavier threatens exposure. Miss Marple's heart sank. Clara was trapped, forced to funnel money for Xavier, who used fear to control her. The chess grid made sense now. Clara was the queen, but not by choice, a powerful piece moved by X's hand. Lily, reading over her shoulder, cursed softly. "We need to get Clara out," she said. "Turn her, make her talk." Miss Marple shook her head. "She's too scared. Xavier's got a grip like iron. We need to find him first." She thought of the scarred man who'd attacked the vicar. Xavier's thug, maybe, sent to clean up. The notebook named others. In the village, small players, but none as Xavier. He was close. She felt it, hiding in plain sight. That night, Clara vanished. Her maid found the manor empty, her bed untouched, and a note on the table. "Queen captured. Checkmate nears." The village buzzed with fear, and Miss Marple's heart raced. Clara was gone, taken or fled, but the game wasn't over. She and Lily met at the Blue Boar, their faces grim. "Xavier's tightening the board," Lily said. "We've got the notebooks, but he's got Clara." Miss Marple nodded, her mind on the chess grid. The queen was off the board, but X was still playing. They had to find him, and fast, before checkmate. Their partnership, forged in suspicion, was now a lifeline. Lily's fire and Miss Marple's caution were their only hope to end the game and save St. Mary Mead from Xavier's shadow. Chapter 6. The Endgame. The morning fog clung to St. Mary Mead, wrapping the village in a damp grey shroud. Miss Jane Marple sat at her kitchen table, the two notebooks, her original leather-bound one and the thinner one stolen from Clara Wentworth's safe, spread before her. Their pages were a chilling record of a chess game turned deadly. Tommy Pierce's murder, marked by pawn takes pawn. The board shrinks, had opened the match. The fire at Robert Lyle's pub shed, with night falls, the queen moves, followed. The attack on the vicar, Mr. Thorne, stopped by Lily Finch's quick action, came with bishop retreats, check. Yesterday, Clara Wentworth's disappearance, paired with queen-captured checkmate nears, had tightened the noose. The notebook's initials, CW for Clara, RL for Lyle, TV for the vicar, TP for Tommy, pointed to a syndicate led by the mysterious X, now named as Xavier, moving money through the village's quiet corners. Miss Marple's sharp eyes traced the newer notebook's entries, her fingers steady despite the weight of Clara's absence. Lines like CW, $3,000, Xavier threatens exposure and Xavier demands, showed Clara as a coerced queen, not a mastermind, forced to funnel cash under Xavier's threats. Lily Finch, her bold ally and undercover agent, had pushed to turn Clara, but now Clara was gone, taken, fled, or worse. The chess grid in the first notebook mapped the game. Pawns, knights, bishops fallen or shaken, the queen off the board. Xavier, absent from the grid, was the player, and Miss Marple knew the endgame was near. Lily burst in at 8, her face flushed, her short hair damp from the fog. "Clara's gone, and the village is losing it," she said, pacing. "I checked. The manor. Nothing but that note. Xavier's cleaning up, and we're running out of time." Miss Marple poured tea, her voice calm. "Sit, Miss Finch. We've got the notebooks, and they're our map. The game's not over till checkmate, and Xavier hasn't won yet. She tapped the chess grid, her finger on the empty king's square. He's here, in St. Mary Mead, watching. We find him. We end this. Lily slumped into a chair, her eyes on the notebooks. Okay, but how? Clara's our best lead, and she's vanished. The grid's got no X, and the village is too small for him to hide long. Miss Marple's lips curved slightly. Small places hide big secrets, dear. Xavier's bold, but he's human, and humans slip. She flipped to a page in the new notebook, a list of dates and sums tied to village events. Fetes, dances, pub nights. One entry, dated next week, caught her eye. $5,000 gala, X collects. The village gala's tomorrow night at the hall, she said. Big crowd, lots of noise, perfect for a final move. Lily's eyes lit up. Checkmate! He's tying up loose ends, grabbing the cash and bolting. We catch him there. Miss Marple nodded, but her mind was cautious. We need to be sure who he is. The notebook's named small players. Lyle, the vicar, Tommy, but Xavier's hidden. I've been thinking about newcomers. She recalled Victor Lang, a quiet man who'd arrived months ago, calling himself a retired banker. He kept to himself, but his sharp eyes and rare smiles stuck with her. His initials, VL, didn't match X, but names could be faked. Lily leaned forward. Lang? I've seen him at the pub, always alone, watching. Could be our guy. It's a guess, Miss Marple said. But the gala's our chance to watch him, and others. We tell Inspector Slack, but only enough to get his help. He's stubborn, but he'll guard the hall if we nudge right. They spent the morning planning. Miss Marple suggested a trap. Let the gala go on, but watch key players, Lang, Lyle, anyone nervous. Lily would mingle, her agent's skills perfect for spotting trouble. Miss Marple would stay in the shadows, her village spinster act letting her eavesdrop unnoticed. They'd tip Slack to watch the exits, saying they'd heard of a thief, not mentioning the syndicate to avoid his bluster. By noon, they visited the police station. Inspector Slack, red-faced and grumbling, listened to Miss Marple's vague tale of suspicious types at the gala. Thieves, you say? He huffed. Fine, I'll post men at the doors, but don't waste my time, Miss Marple. Thank you, Inspector, she said, her smile sweet but firm. Lily hid a grin as they left. You're good, she whispered. He didn't suspect a thing. Miss Marple's eyes twinkled. People see what they expect, dear. Now, let's check the hall. They walked to the village hall, a stone building decked with bunting for the gala. Inside, volunteers were setting up tables, the air smelling of polish and fresh flowers. Miss Marple noted the layout. Main room for dancing, a back room for coats, and side doors. Perfect for a quiet deal. She pointed out the back room to Lily. If Xavier's collecting, it'll be there, away from the crowd. Lily nodded, her jaw tight. I'll stick close to Lang. If he moves, I'll know. They returned to Miss Marple's cottage, poring over the notebooks again. The chess grid showed the game's arc. Tommy's death, Lyle's fire, the vicar's attack, Clara's capture. The gala's entry, X collects, was the king's move, ending the game. Miss Marple traced the grid, her finger pausing until CW's Queen Square. Clara's alive, she said softly. Xavier needs her, or he'd have killed her like Tommy. Lily frowned. Why keep her? She's a risk. Leverage, Miss Marple said. Or proof. The notebooks name her. Maybe she's his shield if things go wrong. She thought of Clara's fear. Her whispered, Xavier won't let me go. Wherever Clara was, she was a pawn now, not a queen. As evening fell, the village buzzed with gala excitement. Miss Marple dressed in her best shawl, her sensible shoes hiding her nerves. Lily met her at the hall, wearing a plain dress but moving like a hunter. The hall was packed, lanterns glowing, music from a fiddle filling the air. Villagers danced, laughed, and sipped punch. But Miss Marple's eyes were busy. She spotted Robert Lyle near the bar, his face pale, serving drinks with shaky hands. The vicar was by the raffle table chatting nervously. Victor Lang stood alone by a window, his sharp jaw tight, his eyes scanning the crowd. Lily whispered, Lang's twitchy. I'm on him. She slipped into the crowd, blending in while Miss Marple moved to a corner, her small figure fading into the background. She watched Lang, noting his glances at the back room. Her heart quickened. He was waiting for something. At 9, the music peaked, the dance floor a whirl of colour. Lang slipped toward the back room, his steps quick. Miss Marple signalled Lily, who followed, her hand in her pocket, likely gripping a weapon. Miss Marple stayed put, her eyes on the crowd, ready to act if needed. Minutes passed, tense and slow. Then a gunshot cracked from the back room, sharp over the music. The crowd froze, screams rising. Miss Marple's heart pounded, but she moved, fast, weaving through panicked villagers to the back room. Inside, Lily was on the floor, clutching her arm, blood seeping through her sleeve. Lang stood over her, a pistol in his hand, his face cold. A bag of cash lay at his feet, bills spilling out. You're too late, Lang sneered, his voice low. The money's mine, and I'm gone. Miss Marple's voice cut through, calm but firm. Not yet, Mr. Lang. Or should I say Xavier? Lang's eyes widened, but he laughed harsh. Clever old bat, but you're out of moves. He raised the gun, aiming at Lily, who glared despite her pain. Miss Marple didn't flinch. You're bold, Xavier, but sloppy. The notebooks name you, and Clara's alive to talk. Drop the gun, or you'll lose. Lang hesitated, his hand shaking. Miss Marple had tipped slack to seal the exits, and she heard boots outside. Police closing in. Lang's eyes darted to the door, and in that moment Lily lunged, knocking the gun from his hand. It skidded across the floor, and Miss Marple kicked it away, her foot surprisingly quick. Slack burst in, constables behind him, and tackled Lang, who cursed as cuffs snapped on. Lily staggered up, her arm bleeding but her grin fierce. Got him, she gasped. Nice play, Miss Marple. Miss Marple's heart slowed, her face calm. You did well, dear. Now, let's get that arm seen to. As the police dragged Lang away, she picked up the cash bag, its weight heavy with the syndicate's secrets. The gala ended in chaos. Villagers sent home, the hall quiet. Miss Marple and Lily sat with Slack, explaining enough to keep him busy without spilling all. Lang, they learned, was Xavier, a syndicate boss hiding as a banker, using Clara to move money. The notebooks, now with the police, would unravel his network. At her cottage, Miss Marple bandaged Lily's arm, the younger woman wincing but tough. You called it, Lily said. "Lang was X. How'd you know?" "Little things," Miss Marple said, her eyes twinkling. "His eyes, his timing, the way he watched. Humans leave trails, dear." She thought of the chess grid, now complete, the king toppled. Clara was still missing, but Miss Marple was sure she'd be found. Xavier would talk to save himself. Lily grinned, leaning back. "We're a hell of a team. Saved the village, caught the bad guy." Miss Marple chuckled, pouring tea. "We did, dear, but the board's never truly clear." She glanced at the window, the fog lifting, St. Mary Mead waking to a new day. The game was over, but others would come. With Lily's fire and her own sharp mind, she'd be ready. Chapter 7. The Board Clears. The morning sun spilled over St. Mary Mead, warming the village's damp cobblestones after days of fog and fear. Miss Jane Marple sat in her cosy parlour, a cup of tea steaming on the table, her knitting needles quiet for once. The 2 notebooks, one leather-bound from the mysterious parcel, the other stolen from Clara Wentworth's safe, were gone, handed to Inspector Slack after last night's chaos at the village gala. Victor Lang, unmasked as Xavier, the syndicate's leader, was in custody. His plan to grab the syndicate's cash and vanish, stopped by Miss Marple's sharp mind and Lily Finch's bold tackle. The chess game, with its deadly moves, Tommy Pierce's murder, pawn takes pawn. Robert Lyle's shed fire, night falls, the vicar's attack, bishop retreats, and Clara's disappearance, queen captured, had ended with Xavier's capture. But Clara was still missing, and Miss Marple's work wasn't done. Her unlikely partner, Lily Finch, the undercover agent who'd posed as a journalist, was at the Blue Boar Inn, nursing her bandaged arm from Xavier's. Gunshot. Their odd team, Miss Marple's village wisdom and Lily's city grit, had cracked the game, but loose ends nagged at Miss Marple. The notebook's entries with initials like CW, Clara, RL, Lyle, TV, the vicar, and TP, Tommy, had mapped a syndicate moving dirty money through St. Mary Mead. Xavier, as X, had coerced Clara, threatened Lyle, and killed Tommy to keep control. The chess grid, with its coded moves, was clear now, but Clara's fate hung heavy. Was she alive, hidden by Xavier's men, or gone for good? Miss Marple sipped her tea, her sharp eyes on the empty table where the notebooks once lay. The gala's endgame replayed in her mind, Lang's cold sneer, the cash bag spilling bills, Lily's blood on the floor, and her own calm voice naming him Xavier. She'd seen his type before, bold, cruel, but human, leaving trails in their haste. His eyes had betrayed him, always watching, and his arrival as a banker months ago had been too neat. The notebooks, now with Slack, would unravel his network, but Clara was the last piece on the board. A knock at the door broke her thoughts. It was Lily, her arm in a sling, her grin fierce despite the pain. "Morning, Miss Marple," she said, stepping inside. "Slack's grilling Lang, and the village is buzzing. They're calling us heroes." Miss Marple chuckled, pouring tea. "Heroes, dear? We just did what needed doing. Sit, tell me what's new." Lily slumped into a chair, her boots scuffing the rug. "Lang's talking, trying to cut a deal. Says he ran the syndicate for years, using villages like this to hide cash. Clara was his front, moving money through her manor's accounts. He scared her into it after her husband died. Miss Marple nodded, her mind on Clara's fear. Her whispered, "Xavier won't let me go at the manor." "And Clara? Any word?" Lily's grin faded. "Not yet. Lang sweared she's alive, stashed in a safe house nearby. He was going to use her as a bargaining chip if things went south. Slack's searching, but no luck so far." Miss Marple's heart tightened. Clara, forced to play the queen, was a victim, not a villain. The notebook's lines, CW $3,000, Xavier threatens exposure, showed her trapped, paying to keep secrets buried. "We need to find her," she said. "Lang's men might move her, or worse, now that he's caught." Lily leaned forward, her eyes sharp. "I've got contacts checking neighbouring villages, but we can help. The notebooks mentioned places, inns, barns, used for drops. Maybe Clara's in one." Miss Marple stood, her knees creaking, but her mind clear. "Let's look at Slack's notes first. He's got the notebooks, but I remember enough to guide us." She recalled entries tied to a barn near Danemouth, a village 10 miles away, used for deliveries. It was a long shot, but Clara's life hung on it. They headed to the police station, a squat building buzzing with constables. Slack was in his office, papers strewn across his desk, the notebooks open before him. He scowled as they entered. "Miss Marple, Miss Finch, what now? I've got a syndicate to crack, thanks to you." "Just a quick word, Inspector," Miss Marple said, her smile disarming. "We're worried about Clara Wentworth. Have you checked the Danemouth barn? The notebooks mentioned it." Slack's eyes narrowed, but he flipped through the leather-bound notebook, grumbling. "Aye, there's a barn, used for cash drops. Didn't think of it for Clara, though." He barked an order to a constable, sending a team to check. "You two stay out of it now. This is police work." Lily smirked but said nothing, and Miss Marple nodded sweetly. "Of course, Inspector. We'll leave it to you." But as they left, she whispered to Lily, "We'll go ourselves, dear. Slack's thorough, but slow." Lily's grin returned. "Knew you'd say that. I've got a car stashed outside the village. Let's move." They slipped away, avoiding prying eyes, and reached Lily's battered Ford, hidden behind a hedge. Miss Marple climbed in, her shawl snug, her handbag heavy with resolve. The drive to Danemouth was bumpy, the road winding through fields, but Miss Marple's mind was on Clara, picturing her scared, alone, waiting for rescue. The barn sat on a hill, old and sagging, its red paint peeling. Lily parked a distance away, and they approached on foot, the grass wet under Miss Marple's sensible shoes. "Quiet," Lily whispered, her good hand gripping a small pistol. Miss Marple nodded, her eyes scanning for signs. A footprint, a flicker of light. The barn door was ajar, creaking in the breeze, and a faint murmur came from inside. Lily signalled to wait, creeping closer, but Miss Marple's heart raced. She followed, her steps silent, her sharp ears catching a woman's sob. Clara's voice. Inside the barn was dim, hay bales stacked high. Clara sat tied to a chair, her face pale, a gag loose around her neck. A man with a scarred face, the one who'd attacked the vicar, stood guard, his back to the door, muttering into a phone. Lily didn't hesitate. She lunged, her pistol raised, shouting, "Drop it!" The man spun, reaching for a knife, but Lily's training was sharp. She knocked him down with her good arm, pinning him as Miss Marple hurried to Clara, her fingers quick to untie the ropes. "Jane!" Clara gasped, tears streaming. "You found me!" "Hush, dear," Miss Marple said, her voice soothing. "You're safe now." She helped Clara stand, her frail frame shaking, while Lily cuffed the scarred man with a rope from the barn, her face grim. "We need to move," Lily said. "More might come." She dragged the man to a corner, tying him to a post, and they led Clara to the car. The drive back was tense, Clara sobbing softly, recounting Xavier's threats, exposure of her husband's shady deals, ruin for her name. Miss Marple listened, her hand gentle on Clara's, but her mind was on the notebooks. Clara's story matched the entries, confirming Xavier's grip. At the police station, Slack's jaw dropped as they brought Clara in, the scarred man in tow. "Blimey, Miss Marple," he spluttered. "You found her?" "Just a hunch, Inspector," Miss Marple said, her eyes twinkling. Clara, safe now, agreed to testify, her fear easing with Xavier locked up. The scarred man, one of Xavier's thugs, spilled names under pressure, unraveling the syndicate's web across counties. The notebooks, Slack admitted, were gold, naming players and drops that would keep him busy for months. Lily and Miss Marple left the station, the sun high now, St. Mary Mead settling into its old rhythm. They walked to the Blue Boar, where Lily insisted on a celebratory tea. "We did it," she said, her sling loose, her grin wide. "Xavier's done, Clara's safe, the syndicate's cracking. You're a marvel, Miss Marple." Miss Marple smiled, sipping her tea. "We did it, dear. Your courage, my little guesses, they fit together." She thought of the chess grid, its pieces scattered now. Pawn, knight, bishop, queen, all accounted for. The king toppled. The board was clear, but she knew human nature. New games would come, new shadows in her quiet village. Lily leaned back, her eyes soft. "I'm off soon, back to my bosses, but I'll miss this place, and you." "You'll visit," Miss Marple said, her voice warm. "St. Mary Mead's never dull for long." She thought of Tommy, gone too soon, and Lyle, rebuilding his pub, and the vicar, praying with new caution. They'd heal, but scars stayed. As Lily left, promising to write, Miss Marple walked home, the village glowing in the afternoon light. Her parlour welcomed her, the kettle ready, her knitting waiting. She sat, needles clicking, her mind calm but alert. The syndicate was broken, Xavier caged, Clara free. But Miss Marple knew secrets lingered, waiting for a sharp eye to find them. She'd be ready as always, her quiet village, her board, her wisdom, her play.